Welcome back to another edition of Between Two FARS. I'm Warneke Miller here once again with the amazing Bob Tepfer and the stunning Michael Mark, of our veteran procurement attorneys here at NASA. And we've been helping you understand what you need to know and what you need to do when that bid protest hits. So congratulations, a bid protest has just been filed. We've talked a little bit about what you need to do to get your agency report ready. We've talked a little bit about what you need to do to stay the current source selection and meet your current requirements. But there's another aspect you need to be aware of in these first 30 days. That's the protective order. There's a lot of ins and outs and things that you need to understand. So let's just jump right into it. Michael, what is a protective order?
Okay, a protective order is a document. It's an order from the GAO that's signed by the parties. Basically, what it does is it admits people to see things without redactions. Now, the government people already have seen everything without redactions since we ran the source selection, but the protester has not. They've only seen their own stuff. Now they've hired a lawyer, and the lawyer wants to be able to see the complete file. So in order to do that, we want to make sure that nothing gets transferred to the protester, because if, for instance, if the protest were sustained and we had to go back, we don't want to get in a situation where the protester now has an unfair advantage because they've seen what the other sides have proposed. So the protective order says that representatives of the protester can see everything without redactions, but they cannot share those with the protester itself. And in point of fact, when we make filings, like when we write the CO statement of fact and when we write the legal memo, we also have to provide a redacted version of that that can be shared with the protester or with people not on the protective order. The protective order
GAO has a lot of information about protective orders, doesn't it? We've got it up on the screen here, and you can see that they've got a lot of instructions and guidance for what this protective order is going to cover.
And they have a pretty much a template of the protective order. And what it does is it names individuals who are admitted to the protective order and says what they have to do. We have had situations where the protester wanted an expert or a consultant to be admitted, and there have been occasions where we have objected to that, and sometimes the GAO attorney says, no, I'm not going to let that person in. We've also had situations where the attorneys wanted to show things to the protester itself that were covered by the protective order, and we have routinely objected to those as well. So you need to stay on top of it, but the protective order allows the two parties to trade the documents without having to worry about redacting them first. And remember, everything is happening simultaneously. We've got the stay issues, we have the work that we're actually doing to put the agency report together. So we want to be able to do that without too much trouble, but we also have to be redacting. And so part of your team is going to be taking like source selection documents like the evaluations and whatnot, and documents that may have to be traded and given to people not on the protective order also have to be redacted. And that can be a very onerous activity. And it's also not always something that the other side is going to agree to. They may propose redactions that we object to. We may propose redactions they object to. And sometimes the GAO says, no, we're not going to redact that anyway.
And Michael, what's your thoughts on the role of intervener in this entire arrangement?
Well, the intervener, which is the person or the company that got the contract, and they have a lawyer too, they should be admitted to the protective order, the lawyers for the intervener. And I typically have found it helpful to trade documents back and forth, drafts, once we're fairly far along, of the CO statement of fact and our legal memo, and get their lawyers' take on it, because they're writing too, and it's helpful to know what tack they're taking and them to know what tack we're taking. But you got to be careful again. You got to make sure they're on the protective order.
Yeah, there's a lot to discuss with regard to interveners. I do want to do another episode on that. But Bob, what have you seen in your experience about how a protective order might be drafted and the impacts that might have on our ability to work a bid protest?
Well, one of the beautiful things about this whole situation is you're assembling the group to put together the contracting officer statement. You're trying to write the legal memorandum, to respond to each and every allegation involved, and you need to have somebody make certain that all facts are verified, because in a subsequent protest, if you've thought of a series of facts were benign and then later it turns out that they're critical, you may arguably acquiesce to their interpretation. And then you've got the the stay issue and setting that up. But it's also, at the same time, a lot of lawyers on the other side are very artful in how they negotiate these protective orders, and who that they're willing to let in or out, or who they object to. And you got to be very careful. They can make it such that, and if it's a narrow area of expertise, that they can work with virtually nobody. And you've got a bunch of lawyers who never heard of this issue, 6 months ago, and now they have to be articulate in their response. So that's all this is going on at the same time, and it can get very interesting.
Yeah, it does. There's a lot to keep in mind. And thank you so much for raising a lot of these issues that we need to consider when we're thinking about protective orders. We did bring up the concept of an intervener, and that is a landmine of issues. And I would love to come back again and dive into that a little bit deeper. How's that sound to you guys?
We can do that.
Yeah, see, here's the cue. Whenever I say that, you always have to agree to me. That's how these episodes run.
Absolutely.
I'm all in.
Absolutely. Next time, between two FARS. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye.